can roll my neck, wag my fingers, and clap back with the best of them. But the last thing you are ever going to see me do is go toe to toe arguing with a whole man, especially in public. I don't care if he is 5'6" or 6'5", the same rule applies. You see, the book of Proverbs teaches that the wise of heart will receive commandments, but a babbling fool will come to ruin. Today, 35-year-old Carlisha Hood and her 14-year-old son are not facing murder charges for the gunshot wounds administered to 32-year-old Jeremy Brown at a Chicago hot dog stand. Many people who hear this story might say, well, good for them. They shouldn't go to jail for self-defense. While others might say they both should be locked up. Both the mom and the son should be locked up. While I personally have an opinion that I do intend to share, the bigger question that this story forced me to consider was, will modern women destroy themselves? Today's modern Black women are so not like the women of yesteryear. We're making our own money, running our own corporations, and we're raising our children all by ourselves. Many of us are doing these things out of necessity, but then there is a huge percentage of us that are doing so because we are simply a glutton for punishment. And we have not learned how to be an actual woman. Today, I'm going to analyze the Carlisha Hood hot dog stand incident from a biblical perspective. I want to look at what went wrong and how this incident is reflective of the broader culture at large. How does this case give us some insight as to why today's youth are the way that they are? And how does this situation demonstrate that modern women today are destroying themselves simply because we're operating in a paradigm we were never supposed to be in? I have much to say about this case, along with the many dissenting opinions that are floating around the social media space. We're going to discuss that story. So tag your mama, tag your auntie. I'm here for all of the smoke. We're going to talk about all of this and more on the Standard of Truth podcast. Grace and peace, you guys. April Chapman here with the Standard of Truth podcast. Happy Friday. I made it. Y'all, I'm on time. Well, I was like 2 minutes late. I'm kind of on time. It's a little rainy here in the metro Atlanta area, but God has been good. He's been grateful and merciful. And so we are here to talk about some controversial things. Today's show, I say this every show. I know I say every show is a doozy, and I kind of really do mean that. But I'd like you to go ahead and like and share this video. The way that YouTube knows that this content is valuable is when people engage with it and let the algorithm know that this is valuable content that should be pushed out for more people to discover. So please go ahead, like this video, share this video, send it to your mama, your auntie, and your grandmama and them. I would love to have multiple opinions engage on this topic. Now that we've got that out of the way, on June 18th, a Chicago woman found herself in an altercation at a local hot dog stand. I am not sure if you've heard about this story, but it's been kind of making its ways through the internet. And before I begin engaging with that story, first off, I'm not showing the video, right? Because I don't want to promote the violence, and you've probably seen it a number of times already. But I do want to get some disclaimers out of the way, right? For the people, y'all know who they might be, the ones that lack critical thinking skills. I do want to make it clear that despite what the title of this video indicates, I vehemently oppose and denounce any man who puts his hands on a woman. I've never advocated for a man to resort to violence, nor will I ever advocate for a man to have the right to strike a woman. Let's just get that, lay that foundation so there's no confusion, right? A man hitting a woman is just wrong. It just is. I have two boys. My boys know you don't hit your sisters. And I have to have that same conversation with my girls because they get quick with it too. And if you don't nip that in the bud now, they end up growing up doing what we're about to talk about today. However, that same energy and opinion that I have for a man refraining from hitting a woman, I am equally opposed to a woman thinking that it is ever appropriate to go toe to toe and argue with a man. So, before we get in the show, y'all know me, I like stories. I gotta tell y'all a little story, right? So, about 24 years ago, right, I was involved in an altercation with a whole grown man. Yeah, so 24 years ago, I did not know the Lord, right? I was dead in my sin and trespasses. I was a lost person. Okay, so understand the context. And it was with a family member who, by God's grace, allowed me to keep all my teeth in my mouth that day. And I can't honestly remember specifically what set me off on this particular evening. But me and my brother-in-law, we had a very heated exchange of words, right? Like I was a hothead back then. I know it's hard to believe, right? I was lost. I was dead in my sin. I'm actually being funny because pretty much y'all can tell, like, yeah, she still got a little bit, a little spice. But I was lost. I was dead in my sin. I was bitter and I was angry at the world because I had made a series of just bad decisions over and over again, a series of bad decisions that led me on a path of more bad decisions. And I was just angry at the world about it. I was just angry and bitter. Anyway, for whatever reason, my brother-in-law, he said something to me that just got me all in my feelings. And the next thing I know, I jumped up all in his face and I was ready to set it off. Do you hear me? I was yelling. I was animated. I was raging through that house like a little wild banshee on the loose. Nobody could calm me down. I'm just crazy and deranged. That's the only words that I can think of to describe what I was going through in that moment. He's popping off. I'm popping off. I'm in his face. He's in my face telling me that I need to stand down. And it was just an all out hot ghetto mess, right? And so my brother-in-law, like he don't even live here, right? He doesn't live in Georgia. He and my sister were visiting from New York. And like I said, I really do not remember what the argument was about. But God had mercy on me that day because had it been a stranger, it may have ended up differently. But because it was a member of my family who had restraint, and he was restrained by the fact that he'd known me as long as I'd been alive, and that it wasn't worth it to go to jail over my momentarily lapse in just sense. Like I was just gone. I was gone. And so I told that story because that day things could have ended very, very different for me. Had it not been for my sister, I would have hit my brother-in-law that day. And what if alcohol had been involved, right? What if my brother-in-law had neglected to exercise restraint and just hauled off and slapped the taste out my mouth? And what if me with my tasteless mouth and all had decided to either hit him back or even worse, grab the firearm and pull the trigger? Stories like this happen every day. And when I look back at that time in my life, there are several observations that I can clearly point out today that clearly escaped me back then. So, for number one, I had no concept of how to properly and respectfully, sorry, engage with men outside of a romantic context, right? Like I knew how to flirt, right? That kind of came natural. I knew how to respond if a guy was trying to holler or get my attention or something like that. But outside of that, I had no concept of healthy boundaries or proper rules of engagement with a man. Why? Well, for one, you'd have to be around a man like outside of a romantic sense in order to learn how to deal with one. And in the normal course of human development, this takes place with the father daughter relationship. When your dad is in your life, dads teach girls how to deal and engage with men, as well as they teach boys how to deal and engage with women, right? But in my world, at that time, there were no major differences between men and women as far as I was concerned, right? So like in college, um, you know, I choked a chick once because I had asked her nicely. I'd asked her nicely the first time, leave me alone. And when she refused, by that third time, I had just resolved to help her out. And I was physically planning to remind her that I had said what I had said the first time. And it was ugly, right? Like it took a whole man to pry my little chubby hands off of this girl. So now, as it relates to the topic of Black women destroying themselves, we've got to have a conversation about our inability to properly engage with the opposite sex, right? So back then, I tell this story of that wasn't the only altercation that I had with a man, but that was one where it was with someone who cared enough about me to exercise restraint and be like, this little girl crazy, she is out her mind. Let me go over here because if I don't, something bad is going to happen. So as we examine this story coming out of Chicago, we have an adult woman, right, who is engaged in a verbal conflict out in public, right? So let me share with you the details as reported by the New York Post. So I'm just going to go ahead and read portions of this article for those of you who are not familiar with it. That way that you just got a little context before we move forward. So it says, a Chicago woman who was arrested for murder after allegedly ordering her 14-year-old son to shoot a man dead in a fast food eatery was freed Monday after prosecutors dropped the charges against her and the teen. Carlisha Hood, 35, and her son had both been charged with first-degree murder last week for the June 18th shooting death of Jeremy Brown, age 32, at the hot dog joint Maxwell Street Express, Chicago. CBS Chicago reported. Hood and Brown had gotten into an argument while waiting for food, and the mother allegedly texted her son, who was waiting in the car, to come help her. The young teen had been accused of gunning down the man with the mother's firearm at her order. Like I said, I am not going to show the video, so you just going to have to use your imagination or go watch it on your own time, right? It's a family-friendly show. However, new evidence came to light over the weekend that made the Cook County State Attorney's Office reconsider a previously unreleased video of Brown brutally pummeling Hood in the head inside the restaurant began circulating on social media. Based upon our continued review, this is quote, and in light of emerging evidence, today the Cook County's State Attorney's Office has moved to dismiss the charges against Carlisha Hood and her 14-year-old son, the office said in a statement Monday. Based upon the facts, evidence, and the law, we are unable to meet our burden of proof in the prosecution of these cases. Both Hood, who was being held on $3 million bond, and her son, who was being held without bail in a juvenile detention center, were released Monday after the charges were dropped. I'm going to skip down a little bit. And it says the pair turned themselves in after cops released surveillance footage showing the minor entering the restaurant and allegedly shooting Brown in the back. Hood had been waiting in line for her food when she and Brown began fighting, according to prosecutors. The new video shows Brown threatening to knock the mother out if she said one more thing. before he winds up punching her in the head. As Hood cowers in the corner, he strikes her at least twice more as other customers gasp and flee the small building. The video cuts out following the sound of a gunshot. It's at that point prosecutors said the 14-year-old stood into the doorway and witnessed his mother being pummeled. He took out a gun, which his mother was licensed to carry according to the local station, and allegedly shot Brown in the back. The wounded man fled the restaurant but was followed by the teen and his mother, who reportedly told her son to keep shooting and kill the man. The teen fires more shots, striking Brown a total of 2 times, according to prosecutors. The man later died of his injuries. The mother then allegedly instructed her son to shoot a woman who had been laughing and encouraging Brown during the earlier fight, prosecutors said, according to CBS Chicago's initial report. Hood reportedly tried to grab the gun from her son, but he pushed her away and fled. They both fled in her car without harming the woman. So I went ahead and read you that article. That was one from the New York Post. And now we're going to go ahead and engage with it, because there are a few details that I'd like to engage with about this story that speak to a more broader context. So first of all, when I first heard about this story, as a married woman, the first thing that came to my mind was, why? I was like, why is this woman out with her son alone in the hood at 11 p.m. at night? And I know y'all might just be like, listen, I'm letting you know, right? This is my perspective, my commentary, engaging with this story. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, well, 11 o'clock at night in the hood, getting some hot dogs with my child. I was like, yeah, that's going to be a no for me. Now, I know many of you are like, April, it's a free country. She should be able to go wherever she wants to get food. You ain't listening. So let me say it again. Why is this woman, out with her son, who is, in my mind, you're 14, you're still a child, alone in the hood? I'm from the hood, okay? So this is not, me, some suburban soccer mom just saying, oh my God, like, Susie, it was the hood. Like, this the hood. Like, I know what goes on in the hood, very quite familiar, and know how to navigate through the hood at 11 p.m. at night, okay? So, y'all, this darn earpiece is getting on my nerves. I'm about to yank it out, okay? Y'all pray for my strength in the Lord. Here are the key words that every married woman I know whose husband cares for her and loves her. The key words that stick out are woman, son, alone, hood, and 11 p.m., right? Every single one of those words are triggers for my husband. Like, ain't no way I'm about to be out at 11 p.m. with his representative that carries his DNA, i.e. his child, out in the hood getting some food at 11 p.m. at night. Like, that's not going to happen. If you ever met Robert Chapman, you already know he's not able. He does not have the ability for that to go down on his watch on purpose, right? Second, why is this woman arguing with a man, right? Like, what could have possibly been said that warranted a female to go back and forth with a man loud and in public that you don't know? I'm not talking about you and your boyfriend. And even that's a little inappropriate, because it's like, why are you embarrassing yourself? Everybody don't need to hear about your business. But a stranger, you don't know him. He's not your man. Y'all are not in a relationship. What could have possibly warranted for a woman to go back and forth with a man loud in public? So for what I see, the problem is that today's modern women I believe that many of us, we actually think and function like we're actual men, right? Like we've been masculine and functioning outside of our created order for so long that the lines and the clear distinctions and differences between men and women have been blurred, and we've lost all sense of reason. Now, when I say we, I didn't say y'all. I'm saying we because I'm speaking of the collective. If it doesn't apply to you, don't come at me saying I'm not like that. I'm not talking about you, boo boo. Okay. I'm talking about the collective. I can't dwell in the margins. I got to dwell in the middle with the gross. Okay. Let's flow with me for a minute. Many of us, if we're just honest, we have no experience being around men or have little or no healthy interaction with a man outside of lying down with one. And then we're raising children and we're instilling into them the same toxic backwards thinking. And then we wonder why our communities are a mess. And I know that that is a very sharp, bold, declarative statement that I made, but don't come for me talking crazy in the comments because I know what I'm talking about, right? If you've been watching me from the beginning or experienced my content for any length of time, you already know that I've explained how I used to be the same unhinged, crazy, and deranged, uncovered woman who had no history of interacting with a man in a healthy context, right? So I'm not speaking what I heard, I'm speaking what I know. Because I used to be this woman, right? Women and men, I had to learn, are not the same. I was raised seeing and witnessing one thing, and then later had to come to the realization that, you know what, we are not the same. The feministic mindset that runs rampant, particularly in the Black community, we don't call it feminism. We don't even have a name for it. Well, we do now. But when I was growing up, I had not really heard or engaged with the word feminist much, but I knew the pathology of feminism because I was living it. I was experiencing it. I come from a long line of generations of women, uncovered women with no man taking a leadership role or even being in the position to be in the leadership role because he ain't there, right? If a man is acting ignorant and he's threatening to punch you in the face, something should click where you lay your ego aside and you throw away your incessant need to be right and you shut your mouth and you get on about your business. That's what you do. And do not ask me. Do not ask me why I'm not checking the deceased punk who actually hauled off and punched the woman in the face. Why? Because there are plenty of male content creators who have been holding men accountable, still hold men accountable, and all of society, believe it or not, always, for the most part, hold men accountable. Okay, men get that. We've already denounced his actions. It was foul. It was just, it was a punk move, right? But we don't need to even have a discussion about it because right now, this discussion is about the women, the part of the culture that no one really likes to talk about. The problem is that there are few, I'm not saying none, but few content creators who actually hold women accountable because nobody can tell Black women anything. Not the government can't hold us accountable, as we see time and time again. The lack of accountability, it has led to us being for some reason, being a protected class of destructive, violent, entitled powder kegs that will blow up at the drop of a hat. And nobody better dare say a word. Well, I'm not scared of none of y'all. I'm not afraid because something has to be said. Something should have been said to me when I decided, because I was silly and foolish and just flat out ignorant when I thought it was okay to jump in a man's face. Now, I probably would have learned, I didn't learn my lesson about healthy engagement with the opposite sex until I met my husband. But from the time that I had that unfortunate encounter with my brother-in-law to the time I met my husband was, let me see, that was 2001. I met my husband in 2005. So that means all my life until 2005, I didn't learn the lesson until I met my husband. I could have probably avoided a whole lot of unnecessary pain and just dumb decisions and putting myself in harm's way. Had somebody loved me enough to tell me the truth and tell me, sis, you out of order. Like that behavior, you wasn't raised by a wolf, but you're sure acting like one. Somebody should have loved me enough to tell me, but since they didn't, and by God's grace, I learned the lesson. I am here to tell you, I'm not going to sit back and stay silent while we ruin the next generation with our destructive, toxic behavior. We're always talking about, I'm grown, I do what I want to do. Who gonna check me, boo? Y'all know. Meanwhile, our children stand by and they have no role model to look to in terms of where they can learn self-restraint, self-control, composure under pressure, self-respect, healthy conflict resolution, and the like. Where will they learn that they don't always have to have the last word? Where will they learn how to shut up and refrain from arguing with a fool? Now, the scriptures teach that when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. That's Proverbs 10:19. Whoever heeds instruction is on the path to life, but he who rejects reproof leads others astray. That's Proverbs 10:17. And then to make matters worse, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof, that's correction, and let me tell you why you're wrong. That's what reproof is. The scripture says, he who hates reproof is stupid. That's the Bible's words, not mine. I didn't say you were stupid. The Bible said that he who ever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. So, here we go with this darn earpiece again. I'm sorry, y'all. So if you're a person, I'll say, if you're a person where no one can tell you anything indicating that you hate reproof or correction, the Bible says that you're stupid. And I know that's a harsh word. And hear me clearly, I don't know how you say those words with empathy, right? Meaning, I was once stupid, and if someone had come to me and said, that's just stupid, back then, it was socially acceptable to just speak the truth and call a spade a spade. The way y'all new school people are set up, I don't know, but I'm sticking with what works. Someone should have told me. My inability to accept correction and course correct was making me a stupid person. So here's what we'll do. We'll move it away from y'all. We'll just put it on me. I will speak in the first person. April was stupid. Because when you hate correction, when no one can tell you anything, and you're just dead set with your tunnel vision doing what you want to do, the Bible calls you stupid. So ladies, you do not, here's what I need you to hear me. You do not need to have the last word. When I tell you I am teaching my girls at 11 this, because I see it, they bicker with their brothers, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at her. I'm like, so you just gonna keep going? Like you still talking. He has said what he said. You have no argument or leg to stand on, but because Your ego won't allow you to fall back. You're still arguing with him. Shut your mouth. One of the most powerful phrases that you can learn is, you got it, homie, and just walk away. Like, walk away. And why? Why? Because the vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. I'm going to say it again. The vexation of a fool is known at once. Like, you can see when a fool is vexed. Exhibit A, Mr. Brown, who is no longer here with us to defend himself. The vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. So I don't know what that man and woman were arguing about at that hot dog stand. But when a fool is vexed, it's going to be made known right away. And if he said something that offended her, the prudent, the wise thing to do would have been, oh, he's dumb. He's ignorant. Like, he's just dumb and ignorant. We're going to ignore. We're going to ignore that insult. Why? Because a lady should not stoop down to the level of a fool. But no, that's not what happened. No, ain't nobody gonna talk to me any old kind of way. You got the wrong one today. Let me tell you something. We've heard it all. We've heard it all, but we are destroying our own selves due to a lack of self-control, an incessant need to be right, and a desire to be a man rather than learning how to function and cooperate in proper relationship to a man. Third of all, this woman is somebody's mama. Let's just look at it like that. This is somebody's mama. Like, someone calls her mom. And this woman, she's been charged with the responsibility to raise another human being, which is one of the highest callings that it is not the highest calling. I would say loving God and enjoying him forever and serving him. But when you're somebody's mama and you're given the responsibility to raise them, that is a big deal. And she's put herself and her son in a situation that is irresponsible and reckless. Yes, that is my opinion. That is my opinion. This is from the former hothead who, you just not gonna say anything to me and think that you're gonna get away with it. Now, I was way more gracious than your average little chick from the hood. I'd give you 2 more times before I'm like, see, now I'm about to snap, right? That was me. But what she did was it was irresponsible and reckless. And I can only speculate. This is speculation. I don't know this. I cannot prove this. This is speculation based on what I can see. But I am curious to know, where's her son's father? Like, is he active in his life? For all I know, he could have passed away. He could be remarried. Like, we don't know. Those details of this story are not known. However, the way she was acting and arguing with a whole man at 11 p.m. at night out with her son in the hood tells me that's a clue that there's probably no man in the picture. Because covered women, they don't tend, like, when they, let me qualify this. Covered women with husbands that actually care and take the responsibility of loving them like Christ loved the church, they like, you said what now? You going where? Oh, no. No, what you gonna do? What you gonna do is you can get that tomorrow, but you're not going out with my son in the hood at 11 o'clock at night to get some hot dogs. We either Uber eating it or you fasting to the morning. That's what's gonna happen. This young boy was placed in a reckless position by the one person who was charged with the responsibility of taking care of him and protecting him. And I have seen so many women raise what I call son husbands, right? These son husbands, they are forever stuck dealing with their mama's shenanigans, right? These women, they do what I call I didn't coin this term. I wish I had, so I am borrowing it from the now deceased Kevin Samuels. But they execute Order 66, right? They place their sons in the position of provider and protector for the rest of their lives. From the time that they're just raised to be the son husband, since there's no man in the picture, right? The son essentially is the man placeholder. So she functions and engages with the son in one aspect like a son, but in other aspects, that's my man. That's my. You've heard it. Well, if I don't know, depends on which segment of my audience. Y'all might be like, "What's a man?" Just flow with me, right? Some of y'all know, some of y'all don't. It's okay. But they instill the same irrational, uncritical, impulsive mindset that rules and controls them, and then they pass it on to the son husband. And I can't prove this because the now deceased scholar, that's what we'll call him, who punched her in the mouth or in the head or in the face or wherever, he could have very well been raised by the same type of mother. And he probably was his mother's son husband. I'm not sure. I don't know these people. I'm just providing commentary based on public events, but no daddy to teach him how to regulate his emotions, and no daddy to teach him self-control.